Buenos días. Es un placer estar aquí en la Ciudad de México, una ciudad más favorita mía, ¿no? Pero, okay, bueno. After warming up the crowd, I'm going to speak the rest in English just to be safe. So in all seriousness, it's great to be here, and particularly talking about innovation. When you think about innovation and the NBA, there's a lot in common that we have. And so the NBA, is known for innovation across sports leagues, maybe, is known for innovation, and I'm having a hard time advancing, yeah? Okay. So we're known for innovation, and there are a couple of reasons for that. When you think about, first off, we're a very global league. And so our games are broadcast in 115 countries around the world, in 50 languages. In addition, nearly a third of all of our players come from outside the US. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But in addition, we have a very young fan base. And so when you think about the US sports leagues in total, we actually have the youngest fan base across all US sports. Over half of our fans are under 35 years old. And so as I say, innovation becomes a central theme. When trying to reach people around the world that are young and tech savvy, we must embrace innovation and technology. There are three themes that really kind of address how we think about innovation and the ways in which we apply it. And we'll talk about those here throughout the discussion. But the first is making sure that we have the right content on the right platform at the right time. Our fans insist upon it. They want to be able to see our content where they are using the device that they have at any time. The second is that we always look to transform the experiences continually to continue to engage and grow the fan base around the world. And the third area is that we embrace technology in order to do so. And so when you think about those themes and our focus on innovation, let's talk for a moment about the results that we've seen. When you think about year-over-year growth in TV viewership, we've seen about a 15% increase in TV viewership alone. In addition, last season, we had 1 billion people across the globe tune in to one of our games. And so that's 1 out of 7 people worldwide watching NBA games at some point during the season. And so now I want to focus a little bit more closely on the specific area that I focus on at the league. I focus on mobile partnerships around the world and how do we actually get content to fans globally through our mobile partners. And in addition, I focus on our direct-to-consumer product, which is our live streaming of games. And so the ability for consumers to watch on the different digital devices and tune into our games. We actually introduced this direct-to-consumer product in 2008. We were the first of all US leagues to have a live streaming game product and have continued to really innovate and build from within on that product. And so the first area, and I think we're having some difficulty with the slides, if we can go back to the slide for broadcast versus mobile. On the mobile, one more. On this slide here, what it talks about is the fact that last year we actually took all 29 of our arenas where our 30 teams play across the US, and we prepared them with an additional mobile production camera. And what that does is we now have a traditional broadcast camera to produce each game, and we have a mobile production camera to produce each game. All of the games are produced in both broadcast and mobile. As you can see here, the broadcast view is our typical view where we pan the entire arena floor. And so a fan can see everything, from end to end. But I think one of the things that's really interesting about basketball in particular as a sport is that you can see their faces, right? And there aren't that many players on the field at a given time. There are 5 on each team out there. And so it becomes a very personal experience for fans to see up close and personal the players that they're following. And so what the mobile view does is really tunes into that, right? It zooms in on the ball and the action around the ball and who is, actually right around there so that you can see who's doing what in the game. And what we've seen from that, introducing the mobile view into the League Pass product last season and continuing to innovate on it this season, is that we see up to 2.5 times the engagement of a normal view. And so it tells us that our fans, being tech savvy and young, are very focused on being able to use mobile devices and really get that up close and personal experience like they're almost in it, okay? The second area that I want to go to on the next slide is a product called Rapid Replay, which we recently introduced. And what this does is this pans around the league at a given time and talks about all the trending highlights for the games that are on. And so what it does is it very quickly allows a fan that is tuning in to say, what's going on around the league and which game am I going to tune into? And that's been a very exciting product which fans have appreciated. The next area that I'll talk to is localized content. And so, as I mentioned, our games are viewed in 215 countries and 50 languages. We have 108 players of our 450 that at the beginning of the season were from outside the US. And so we feel like there's a great opportunity there to really talk to the local audience that's tuning into those games. And we do it in two ways. One is in language and making sure that we're demonstrating, play-by-play discussion of the games in a number of languages. And so in League Pass this last season, we actually have a number of our games that are play-by-play in Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, and Korean. In addition, the other way in which we localize is through the content. And so when you have players from different countries around the world, we find that the fan base becomes very engaged, following their guy that made it to the NBA. And so a few examples of that, Ben Simmons, who plays for the 76ers in Philadelphia, comes from Australia. And so being able to put some personalized content that's focused on, that is focused on Ben Simmons for the local Australia crowd. They have a big interest in knowing what he's doing every night in the league. The other areas, and these are probably very familiar to this crowd, on San Antonio, we've got Pau Gasol from Spain, and Manu Ginobili from Argentina. And then on the Rockets from Brazil, we've got Nene. And so we find that the localized fan base really tunes in when they see their guy on the floor every night playing. And so being able to bring them special content or stories, highlights, areas of focus around those players is the other way in which we localize our content. The next area is really focusing on making it easy to purchase and consume so that fans can very quickly go from understanding what's trending tonight in the games to watching that live game and able to purchase. And so you see here the different platforms on which we have integration as an example. And of course, with that comes payment solutions that makes it very easy to pay through one's account, either through Google or Apple. You get the idea. In addition, we work with mobile carriers, AT&T in the Mexico market, for example, or Telefónica Vivo in Brazil, and really work with them to integrate payment from their solution, making it very easy for their consumers to access the game. The other way that we make it easy to purchase, though, is we do a lot of innovation around the types of packages and pricing that we offer. And we use data to understand what is it that fans want from us, how do they prefer to buy. And so most recently, in the US market, as an example, this last season, we introduced monthly packaging. And so the ability not to have to pay for a full season up front, but to be able to pay monthly and consume that. And we saw extraordinary net new growth of consumers that we had not dealt with before or met before. The other area that we've been innovating internationally as well as in the US is around the packages themselves for the ability to buy a single day worth of games, so seeing all the games on a Thursday that are happening, to be able to buy a single game, so if there's one particular game of those players that you're following and you want to tune into that, being able to buy just that game, as well as being able to buy a package of games so that you can handpick a handful of games, or lastly, team. So when you're watching the San Antonio Spurs or you're a big Houston Rockets fan, being able to buy that particular team's game for the season. And so we see that through doing a lot of data analytics and understanding how fans are actually consuming, we've been able to continue to innovate there and make it easier and easier to purchase our content. The next area is an area that a lot of people talk about these days is, fans and consumers alike are continuing to ask for more and more personalization, more and more control of the experience that they have. And so whether it be the fan signing in with us and registering and telling us who their favorite team is so that we can very easily serve them up that particular content first and prioritize that, to the ability for eventually, as we continue to innovate, to put their fantasy team on there and track their players from the different teams and what they did in last night's games to understand how that impacts them in their fantasy league standings. The other area is, we have introduced a product called In Play, which is the ability to actually engage with the live broadcast as it's happening. So with your personal mobile device, being able to play a game as you're watching the live broadcast and having it synced, and estimating what's going to happen next or how many points is your person going to get, and therefore, pushing the turbo button, which then gets you points for everything that your particular player does on the field. And so really making it a very engaging and personalized experience. One of the ways, as I mentioned earlier, we embrace technology, and I'll talk about partners in a moment because partners are a big part of that technology and embracing it. But one of the ways that we embrace technology in order to help build these experiences, an example I will give you is with WSC, a company from Israel that actually is able to automatically take content from our live games and cut highlights very quickly. And so over time, what that eventually does is allows fans and consumers to see exactly the highlights or exactly the plays that they're most interested in. And so that will become a more and more important piece to really feeding these different innovative experiences that grow our engagement with fans. Lastly, market partnerships are really important. When you think about the fact that we have this growing fan base across the globe, they're young, they're tech savvy, they want new and exciting experiences every day, we continue to broaden the types of partners that we're involved with because we believe that our partners can really help us to innovate. And so you see here a lot of our mobile partners around the world that have engaged with us. And really what they're doing is anything from helping us to localize the content in language, integrate the payment solutions, helping to deliver and distribute that content so that it's easy to find on the devices that those consumers use, as well as helping to work with us to promote the content and make sure that fans are aware of it. And so the partnerships really become a key part of our innovation. And so with that, I would say that we will continue to really innovate from a mobile perspective and certainly a direct-to-consumer perspective, using the data and the engagement information that we get every day as our fans continue to tell us what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, what they want more of. And so for that, we're thankful to our market partners, and we'll continue to focus on innovation from here. So I will now introduce my colleague, Scott Stanchek, to talk about emerging technologies. Thank you.